So quick shop update for today. A few hours in on the satellite. We'll get back to that. Just gonna do a fast one here on this one. Bunch of stone chips and little paint blowouts. Gonna do like a gravel guard from the line down all the way to the back. But then we're gonna paint it so that it matches the rest of the truck. Clean up the rockers. Typical Chevy, all the paint is kind of peeling, you know, but not rotten. We're gonna treat that later, tomorrow morning probably. So I went ahead, and any little spots popping out of the paint and whatnot, they get little blowouts, these trucks. The best thing to do is to sand everything off and epoxy prime it, but we don't got a budget for that, so we're just going to hit all the little blowouts, fill them in like so. It's not going to be too crazy. We'll probably blast it all off with a machine. Here I haven't done nothing yet, but we want to treat that. We'll put something better there. Down here we'll treat all that stuff. Same idea on this side. A few blowouts. Some stone chips and a couple blowouts down there. Any of the four corners like so, or how they are. So we'll probably do some pour 15 underneath the whole bottom. And once that's dry, we'll eat up a lot of paper because that stuff turns rock hard. But it seems to work, so we're gonna scuff it when we're done with something sharp. Change your paper often on that pour 15 when it's dry, but then we'll epoxy prime right over it. Yeah, the tailgate wasn't bad. There was a little chip here, and right here it had failed, and of course we'll touch those up. I don't know if I'll paint the whole tailgate. Probably. Not sure yet. I was thinking about just blowing in the color, and if it blends nice. Well, we can always try that, and if it don't blend nice, because you got to clear coat the whole gate anyway, so we'll sand the whole gate. I'm not pulling the plastic off this, and we're just going to tape it off. And the letters, I'm not sure what to do with those yet, whether I pull them off or tape them. I mean, that's not bad, but that's a lot of tape, and there's been a few times where I actually ran the tape tight here and just didn't bother painting inside the letters, but we'll see how it goes and how I feel at the time and how much time we got. But again, pour 15 all down in the corners and whatnot. Gravel guard will be pretty high. And then we'll paint over the gravel guard with the same color as the truck, same base clear. It'll look like it's supposed to be. Also, we're going to throw, I think there's flares. They're not too crazy, but they come up to about here. And he had no rust up above there, so, you know, just to buy more time, because it is a 3/4 ton truck. I figure whatever we do to it today will probably make it last. So, on the satellite, we had a good day today. They reproduce these now, which is cool, but you got to have these. The original holes were for the metal ones, and I believe 69 they had a metal one that had two like this, but I'm thinking maybe 68 had the holes in the middle. And the stuff we got requires a hole in the middle. So we got all the holes. You can see a pencil line there too. So what we did is we counted them out. There's 9 of them for each side. And when the plastic piece pushes in, well, here, let me show you. It's actually pretty cool. So this little nub goes inside the hole. And then these, here it is from the back side. So basically what you see there will expand because these get pushed into these, and you push them until they're flush. And he knew this because he pulled some off a 68 and they had those little pins. Now the plastics were a wee bit different, but hey, it'll work, right? So they fit the car nice. We also got some of these. They're like a repop wheel arch trim. I don't want to mess with them, you know, once the car's done. If it ain't sitting good here, it's because I pulled the screw out already. We got her pretty close, a little bit of a divot there. I find these aftermarket ones are never perfect, but that being said, they're pretty good. Same with this, I already got the screw out, so that sits in pretty good. But I wanted to test fit them all and drill all the holes and make sure it fit tight. We did have to add one hole in here because it wanted to come out. When you look at the top of these, the way they form them, they kind of want to pull out from the car just the way they're bent. So you got to kind of fit them. But when the car's all painted, and the sports satellite, and the guy that owned this car originally bought it back years later, so he knew that those belonged on there. And the chrome on the bottom, he actually has the old ones, but they're beat and mashed and whipped. But he didn't have those, or maybe he did, but they were all kind of chewed through the bottom. And sometimes they were aluminum too, so I know they tended to have like all pinholes in them and stuff. But anyway, so these, I guess they're like a light stainless, but they're pretty decent. So what did we work on today? Well, we took the mirrors, took the handles off. He had done all this around so that we could paint around them. I don't want to paint around them, messes with the paint. I'm an okay painter, not a great painter. The modifications and fab work is probably what I like to do. The body work's okay. Still got to make that smooth and block it out. We had a little dimple in the door here for whatever reason. I think it's just the way they form the doors. But as you can see, in a previous video I showed how bad these were. Yeah, they look, it's kind of a funny thing Chrysler did here, but they fit pretty nice. When you open them, it just kind of swings in underneath in that shape, right? So that's pretty much your finished body gap on this side. This one as well. Flows real nice, everything is smooth, it's all blocked together. We ran a straight edge on this one and blocked a bit of the door down and reprimed it, but we didn't have to fill. I mean, we could. She's a little bit out here, but it's pretty close. I might just shim the bottom of the fender out a touch because I think I pulled it in too far. And of course, this was way out of whack. As you can see now, I do got to sand it down one more time, but that's going to line right up. You'll be able to go down that body line all the way down. The edges are nice now. It looked like they didn't fit together before. So we got all that working out pretty good. The rest of this fender, other than those two little spots, this has all been finished out. A little bit of touch-up work to do there. We fixed that fender. We had to fill it and match it to the hood, so that worked pretty good. And it had to come up, and we got some little dents in it when I reshaped it. And we figured what happened, somebody put a patch in the fender, and it was a little bit too flat, so it didn't arc with the hood. This side's the same way, but it's not as bad. It's enough that when we adjust it, I think it's going to look just fine. So that's cool. This fender I still got to go over. It looks to be really good, but as I discovered with the other one, the 2 dents I thought were there ended up being 4 or 5 little dents. So we'll check that out. We did block this whole part up to so far, but yeah, there's not much to do there. I blocked all this together. We're gonna have to do it one more time. There was some pinholes and little dips, and when I sanded, I felt like it wanted to kind of go in and back out, so we filled it out a little further. I mean, like, you can see through it, right? You can see how thin I'm doing this so that we can go as thin as possible. Here's the gap on this side. It's pretty sweet. I had to add a little bit in here and here and here. So I got to sand this one and this one. There was some little dimples in the filler. Well, there's a little dimple right there. But anyway, that's what we're working on today. Again, took the handle, mirror, all the stuff off this side. Realized by this shape that it looks like that mirror was sitting on crooked. Maybe we'll go look at the other side and see what it's doing. Yeah, so that one doesn't sit crooked, but he did add this one to this side, because this one only had the one mirror for years. It was supposed to have two, so he bought a new mirror for the other side. But if any of you Dodge guys out there, Mopar guys, should these holes be straight? Because if so, let me know in the comments, and that'd be the time for me to fix it. Of course, when it's on the car, and even taking it off, I never noticed it till now. So I guess it doesn't really matter that much. And I'd say it's likely factory, but I know it's not, because this is a new skin. I did a whole video on that, so we didn't skin the door here. He took the door off the car, and another shop said, well, just give me the door. I don't want the car. We'll put a new skin on it. And the skin was, what was it, too far back or too far ahead on the shell. And then you can move these. So you put your hand in here, and down there it was like hitting metal. Like it looked like the whole thing was corkscrewed. So when I was lucky that there was only a few welds and then glue, and we heated it. So we were able to pick it up by the corner, and you just gently lift it up and you can see the whole thing twist any which way you want. And then we did it till it fit the car properly, tacked it in, welded it back in. And as you can see, it fits. Body line's pretty good. I gotta put a little more fill here, which will probably get removed, because when we round this off, like these edges, because they're pretty square right now, the gap it'll be the same, but it'll look like it opens up a bit, because when you round off the edge. These ones were rounded off, and you can see how it looks a little bit bigger. And down here it kind of shrinks, but it doesn't. It's because I put new filler in there. And anyway, I scraped most of it off, but you go in there with a folded piece of 80 grit and you can shape that to whatever you want. But you want to make sure you go to almost the metal, right? Because you don't want things chipping off the door. And keep in mind, this on here is super thin. Now, I went a little bit fat here, but when I block it out, there's going to be almost nothing there. I mean, these cars are old and twisted and bent and, you know, aftermarket metal everywhere, so they are what they are. But yeah, she's almost there. As far as I know, this fender is spectacular. We had a couple little dots here I filled in, so I got to sand some of that. Some of those ones on the trunk are smooth, but some aren't. A couple pinholes there. Here in a previous video, I guess we found a whole bunch of little weirdness in the filler, but you know, that's all been blocked. So I mean, if we block that down into the rest, it'll be pretty sweet. Back end is all done, as good as we need it to go. So this thing is coming close to paint. I make these out of coat hangers, and it's basically just so I can open the door. If there's a better way, comment. I've only done a couple Mopars, and I just do them with the door handles off. But in this case, if I shut the door with no door handle, yeah, you can't get in there. So what do you do to open the door, right? I know on the Dart that I had, I think the windows were in the doors, and I taped around the trim. But anyway, I can't remember how I did that one. It was like a repaint. So here I got to come in and clean this up at the bottom a bit. It looks good from the top, but you know, just so when you open the door, you don't see like, oh, why is it all messed up there? There was no rot or nothing, but the door, when it was wrong, this corner was rubbing in here. As he'd try to adjust it this way to fix the back, right? So you can't do that. And it had all been jammed, but there's a few chips here and there we'll have to touch up. We'll have to fix this edge. Will probably come right into here, into this line, and then jam it all. We still got to come in here, take all the welds off, just grind them smooth. And I know some guys say, well, if you had holes here or whatever, you could, but in this case we tacked them, because if you look right here, you can see where the metal stops, right? So this is what I mean by these Mopars. The skin can float back and forth. I went and looked at an original car that he has. You can actually see a little bit of a gap here, so I went roughly there. And by going there, the adjustment in the bolts as far as moving the door back and forth, they're roughly in the middle. So you have adjustment both ways from where we are now. So we're going to grind those welds off, and we're going to run a thin bead of seam sealer. I know Dodge didn't have seam sealer, but I mean, this isn't quite as pretty as what they did. Oh, I still got to put the window, actually I'll leave it up and tinfoil it off. I got to come in here, basically push this together a bit. We're going to put a little fill piece in here. Actually, there's a V here, and then this should be filled, and this should be filled, so we got to weld that. I keep forgetting about that piece, but we don't want this to work up and down as it can, right? So, yeah, I can see it. Yeah, it shows in the video, I guess. But anyway, so we got to weld this up. The rest is fine. Bottom edge, we'll just seam seal it. Very thin seam sealer just to be clean. The edge up there, I think I did something already, so that's good. Yeah, this door never closed before, now it does. So that's really cool. Some very minor stuff. And then today, we had done the whole fender, but we hadn't done here where it kind of goes in and it starts to cave out again, right? So I blocked that today. That took about an hour to clean that up. I saw some junk down there, so we filled that up and over there. But anyway, Sports Satellite's coming along good. I should have had a jack this way to work on it the whole time. Basically, she's just sitting on those ramps. I like to do that, right? So if you jack up the back, that don't come off the ramp, right? It's just a little piece of 2x2 and the wheel wrench is jammed in the hole there. And the cool thing is the wheel actually came back to it. Like, you got to make sure you drive the vehicle up ahead enough that you can do it, but if not, you can just throw it in the next hole or whatever. But anyway, that holds really good. The reason I like that is because I do that first, and when I jack up the back, I just throw the jack under the diff, lift it straight up, so this way it won't roll back on you, jack and all. And of course, you know, we got the jack stands, jack's over here out. But this is just a nice height where I can sit on my little rolly bench or whatever you call it and wheel around, do all the work. But not so high that I can't, you know, sand up here. Now, of course, before I didn't have it jacked up. I kind of should have, but I wasn't really at the bottom. It was mostly a lot of the hood, the roof, and all this. So, you know, different states of work. This thing where you crawl around on the floor, you know, for the half an hour it takes to jack it up, throw some stands under it, same there. There's cool stands you can get like this, actually, where this detaches, and it's just a square. And I think there's a belt that holds the tire. I saw that in a video, and I thought they looked pretty cool. But this has always worked for me. I pulled the wheel wrench and used it. The tire's not actually on the block. It's barely touching it, but we'll put it back in just well, when we go to jack this down. Same issue, right? The jack can roll back and roll down the ramp. Probably not, but, you know, better safe than sorry. Yeah, this is all cleaned up. So, some of these, I mean, you can see right through it, right? Like, it's paper thin, but marks, chips, every little thing. The right way to do this, if the car wasn't built, if it was just a shell, like I wish people would bring them as a shell, kind of like that Cadillac up there. No glass, no nothing, just door handles and a steering column so we can start it and move it. But yeah, so I'd like to prime the whole car with a fat coat of primer and block it all, but we can't really do that. I am going to kind of do that, but you know, there was little chips and marks, sand swirl, there was all kinds of issues. And I can't count on the primer as much because, right, this is all jammed and we don't want to redo it. But I'm probably going to redo half of it anyway, just to feel. But the glasses were just installed all with new kits and it's all repaired so nothing will leak. The guy painted around here. He did paint under there, but you know. So we're gonna try to avoid, and this is what ticks me off with doing it this way. And I'm not complaining, like the guy did really good work, but when I prime, actually my sail panels are really nice. So I might not prime those, but what am I gonna prime? So I'm gonna tape off the quarter. I'm gonna run the tape flat on this edge, and I'm gonna prime this quarter because I know there's a lot of block work and sand swirls. I'm gonna do both quarters. I don't know if I'm gonna do it up to here or up to here. And then I'm just gonna kind of feather it over and then sand that off. We're gonna do a high build epoxy primer, CRE321. And after that dries for 3 days, then we can block it out really, really nice. So we're gonna do that to the quarters. As far as I'm concerned, these doors, yeah, the little bit there, we'll just spray that in, seal it. These doors have been sealed and then a little more primer, but I mean, I think that'll be fine. Fender, that's a bit of sanding down there and she's ready for paint. This has to be fixed. So I don't think we're gonna have to put layers of epoxy primer on all this. Yeah, there's no sand swirl. There's a little bit of something there. So we might just sand that edge and prime that, but you know, I can also take my epoxy primer and put a nice fine bead right across that and then just block that bead back out nice and sharp. So that's probably what I'll do there. The door will be scuffed and shot. The quarters and the roof, because the roof had a few weird little deviations, especially right up on this edge. Now I'm gonna go over the roof probably, and I'll probably look at it and see a couple spots I might just touch up, but I want epoxy above that windshield line up there because it's a little bit rough and you can't quite get where you want to go. So I'm definitely gonna do that with a bit of epoxy. So both quarters and the trunk lid. So the Bondo or filler, whatever you want to call it, on the trunk lid. So this is a trunk lid that was rejected from another project. It was wavy. Right here, someone had thrown it on and strapped it down, but it wasn't bolted on. And the hinges put 2 dents on each side. And that fixed okay, but then what happened was, yeah, that's way better now. I don't know how smooth it is. I think we're really, really close. So I'm gonna tape all around the edge of the trunk lid, and I'm gonna drop 3 super fat coats of epoxy primer on that. And we're gonna block the hell out of that. And hopefully, I think we're straight, but that's just the insurance to take any little wobbles out. So she's coming. I'm starting to have fun with it. This is the panel that goes on the trunk. We did the argent, and I did do a base clear, just because I had the argent and base clear. Or was it I can't remember now. Could have been single stage. No, it wasn't. It's base clear. Also, these guys, base clear, they go inside the pieces that go on the hood. The power bulges or whatever they're called. So I do got to come in here now and do the inside of this in black, and see in here there's a little pinstripe that goes in here that has to be red, which matches how the grill's done to some degree. So that'll be cool. There's a lot of work doing the work around a built car. I backed this outside a few times, blew it all out and washed it. As you can see, it's super dusty because the work I do is, hey, I work in a dusty place. 440 Super Commando. No, that's not the engine that goes with this VIN tag. Now, everything on this car, I believe, is correct except the wheels and the engine. This would have been a 318 car originally. But it's got power windows, but no AC. Cool thing with the sports satellite over the Roadrunner. Hang on. Buckets and console. If you look down at the light on there, it's the same as what they had in the Monacos for a console. But he's got like a new dash pad, new headliner, new seats, new back seats. New door panels, they're not on it. We're going to change the wiring harness. Well, he's doing that. There we go. But I don't know if this one would have had this panel. Yeah, must have. I can't see him adding it. And the Sport Satellites had basically a lot of trim on them. You know, they had the trim down the bottom, around the wheels, probably the trunk lid. I don't know if this is the original. I know it's not the original hood, but I don't know what originally would have came on the car. He said he had a hood just like this on it back in the 80s when he owned it. I'm sure there's a Mopar guy out there that knows. I know the Satellite would have had a normal hood, but the Sport Satellite may have had this. And then there's GTX. Actually, the GTX had this hood as well. And then I think the Roadrunner could have had this, but usually it had kind of that square scoop. So I know you basically checked off a list and ordered a lot of these cars. So some people go, that's not right, I had one. But I mean, there's a lot of deviations. But this car, we know originally was a 318 automatic console buckets, power windows. And the cool thing with the Satellite too, this came with the big rear end, which is pretty cool. But yeah, it seemed to have all the good stuff. All the stuff you'd want with a tiny little 318. So we've got this in it. And basically, you know, the ram horn. If you would have ordered this with this engine in 69, this is what you would have got. And this engine is a 69 block and heads and everything else. The only exception is it's got a cam in it. I was told it might be a brown cam. I'm familiar with the purple cam. The brown cam is supposed to be a little more aggressive because this engine was being built, I believe, for a GTX of some sort. And anyway, the collector basically had a lot of spare parts kicking around. They all ended up on this body. That's it for today, I guess. That's the shop update. But yeah, gonna be a sad day to give this one back. Don't know if I've shown this one in a while. Restored underneath. Everything is hard to see without light, but it's all clean and blacked out. So the cool thing with this is it's been on the hoist and shored here for a little while. Tomorrow morning I'm gonna cut out 2 small patches in the front floors, replace those. Actually, once I cut them out, the car's coming back down on the ground, so she'll be sitting on her tires again, which is great. We can move it in and out again, so that'll be good. It's time to restore the car, and the underneath and all the crap stuff is done. Under the hood's all restored. That's a 63 Coupe Deville. That's it for today. I probably went too long. Cheers.